Morning, Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Daled, Halacha Yud Gimel, chapter 4, Halacha 13. Yoni Ava Porkim Ela. The contents of these four chapters, Shebechomish Mitzvahs Ela, which are connected to the five commandments, Heim Shechachom Oishonim Koyon Oisom Oisoi. This is what the first Chacham call them, Pardes. So the Pirish explains these four prokim. We said the first two have to do with the upper levels, upper spheres, and the others have to do with this world and its existence. That have to do with the five mitzvahs, which has to, one, to know that there's a God; two, they shouldn't think there's other gods; three, to concentrate on the unity of God with everything; four, to love a God; five, to fear God. These are called pardes. For two reasons. First of all, because an orchard has many different types of fruits, and it's beautiful to behold, and flowing water, which causes a person to be happy, and it gives him a broad outlook. So too, this wisdom causes a person to have greater intelligence, accomplish more with his mind, and gladdens his heart. And the second reason is that when a person goes into an orchard, he will find many trees. He doesn't know what they are, but afterwards, when he studies them, he'll understand each one, what benefit they have that you can get from every fruit. So too, at the beginning, you won't comprehend their need, but when you look into it a little while, you will comprehend it. As they said, there were four who entered and understood the entire realm of the world. Ben Azai, Ben Zoimel, Acher, who is Elisha ben Avuyo, and Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai hits it to Mace. Ben Azai looked at it and died. Ben Zoimel hits it to Nivga. Ben Zoimel studied it and became unbalanced. Acha Kitzetz ben Atiyos, Elisha ben Avoyo went off the track, the Kilkil, and he destroyed. Rekiva Nichnas B'Shalom Yotze B'Shalom. Rekiva entered with peace and left with peace. Even all four were great men. The Chacham Gedolim, wise men, not all of them were capable of comprehending and containing all of that which they understood in its totality, in its clarity. And I say, that it's not proper for somebody to go touring this area. Lechem ubasa. Only somebody whose stomach is full of bread and meat. He's referring here to Torah. Lechem ubasa who laid down also muto, and lechem ubasa means to know what is permitted and what is forbidden. Mitzvahs and everything that has to do with all the other mitzvahs. In Sefer Likutim, they point out the name of a Mari. That's the Lashon Gemara in Eruvin. Whoever who studies Torah, it's as if he eats meat. Furthermore, they say in Chagiga, on the pasuk, the passage in Yeshayahu 3a, Kol Mishan Lechem. These are the people who study Talmud. So too, when we learn the Gemara and Halacha, they call Lechem Avasa. Therefore, it's not correct to go into the orchard, only somebody who's full of Torah and Limud. Even though these things are called minor items, meaning the Torah is called small items, and what's called a great item is the makeup of the world above. And that which is smaller is the study of the Gemara, meaning the actual existence or presence of that. What happens and the disagreements that Abai and Rava had, still, without them you cannot comprehend the others. Haran Choylek al Rambam, the Ran disagrees with the Rambam. His opinion is that the learning of Abai and Rava is called a minor because the first Tanoim, like Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, knew the entire Mishnah correctly, so, and also that which Abai and Rava would later infer. Therefore, the Abai and Rava is considered a minor regarding the greatness of the Tanoim. The Abai and Rava were in the Gemara, which are called Amoroim. The Ran concludes if it would be better if he hadn't written what he wrote. The case of Mishnah cites the name of the Ritvo. The Abai and Rava are greater than the greatest wisdom of all the nations. And not like the later commentaries, which means the Rambam seems to say that knowledge of the heavens, and God should atone for those mistakes. He brings with the name of Elio Mizrachi that there's no question that the learning of Talmud is the source, is the root, and the main stray by which we merit the world to come, more so from any other wisdom, and that is the wisdom that is greater from anything else. He brings proof to that. Thus, according to Abel Mizrachi, Ma'aseh Mekova is considered great from the value that they deal with it, knowledge of God, and from the depth that you need, which is very difficult to attain. That's why it's called great. But from the reward and value thereof, certainly the study of Shas and Poskim is the main aspect of life, and that's where you will come to the life of the world to come. So the Kesef Mishnah explains the Mishnah in Ovos. So the Abloza Chismo Oima, Abloza Chismo said, Kinen upischei nido, which has to do with the birds that have to be brought when mostly when a woman gives birth, upischei nido, and the laws of nido, they are the essence of laws. Tkufos, figuring out when the seasons change, gematriyos, and what's hinted at in the numerical value of words papo is lechochma, is only embellishment of wisdom. That even though they are also very high level items, however, the kinen b'scheniden, which would seem to be things that you deal with in everyday life, still they are the important essence of Torah, both from the fact that they should know what's going to be done, and also from the aspect of intellectualism, more so than figuring out times and and the hidden numbers of the Torah. Al became, even so, they should be first, because they cause a person's thoughts to be settled. And furthermore, they are the goodness that God gave this world, the Yishuv Ha'olam Hazer, to be able to live in this planet, so we should be able to merit the world to come. HaKoil, and it is possible to know all of Abai and Rava, Kotten v'Godel, Ish v'Isha, Ba'alei v'Racha, Ba'alei v'Kotza. And meaning halachas and Torah can be studied by men, women, those who have wide expanse of heart, and those who have a very limited approach, which is not the same when you come to the hidden secrets. Here the Rambam gives two reasons why you should start learning halachas before you enter the hidden orchard, because halachas cause a person to be satisfied after he learns them, like bread and meat, cause a person to be satiated and give him strength. Furthermore, by doing mitzvahs, he will have the world to come. Mefarish adds that because the learning of halachas brings to the enablement of living in the world, if you're careful about stealing, etc., and taking off the possibility of damage, and you're only concerned with doing justice, there will be peace in the world. There are those who disagree on the Rambam. What is he called? Pardes. In the Sefer Meiser Keach, he points out, in Hilchas Talmud Torah, the Rambam writes that all the items that are called Pardes are considered Gemara. That seems to contradict what he wrote here, that the Talmud is a small item. The Meiser Bereshis is a important item. The Ramah in Yesodei states, She'ein l'odam lilmod kiyam mikra. A person should only study Chumash, Mishnah, and Gemara, and the Poskim, the Halachas that come after them. That way he'll acquire this world and the world to come. But he shouldn't learn other wisdoms, other studies. And still, you can learn them not as your main study, but it should not be written by people who do not believe in God. And that's called, the study is called going into the Pardes. The person shouldn't go over there only after he has studied all that he can. He knows what's forbidden, what's mutter, and laws, and all the mitzvahs. And the Ramah Ramban, we've seen that is going into the orchard. It means dealing with other wisdoms, except for Chumash, Mishnah, Gemara, and Poskim. But the Gra writes that the Ramah did not see the Pardes. If that's a Pardes, how could the Ramah saying it will not bring him to go to know of Olam Haba? There's nothing greater than the reward of entering and comprehending God. The Rambam himself wrote that the knowledge of creation, knowledge of the spheres above, is a great thing. Therefore, the main reward is actually that. The Shach writes that even the Mekubalim, those who study Kabbalah, and the later commentaries said you should not learn Kabbalah until you know all of Shas, because there are those who wrote that you should learn Kabbalah until 40, and which is when a person attains his completion of 40 years of knowledge. And you should learn also everything with holiness and purity, with swiftness and cleanliness. And from his words, you'd see that studying that which is normal is not actually knowing which is nature and other wisdoms is not something they can apply to every student. On the actual Lashon of the Ramah, the Goyen writes it's not clear. It would seem that all the other wisdoms, except for Talmud, are called going into the orchard. It's not so. Only Meiser Bereshis and Meiser Mekova is called Tilul Pardes. The Risha questions in the Rambam if Pardes means nature. As I'm right in Hilchas Talmud Torah, that Pardes is part of the Talmud. Therefore, the Risha concludes that Pardes is going into the essence of how God manifests Himself. And this is the Rambam conveyed that this too is part of Torah. But a person should study that only once he has a good basis in Mishnah and Gemara. We'll point out that the Yavitz in Sefer Lechem Shamayim, there he discusses if Pardes is part of Torah, and in Hilchos Talmud Torah we will go more detail into that. The Hagoras Maimonides brings the words of the Aruch. He writes under the category Evan, the name of Hagoin, the Gemara that we mentioned before, that 4 entered the Pardes. that they prayed with purity, and they used the crown of God, and they see the angels as they stand and do their work, and how there is level after level, and level within, and chamber within chamber, and not that they went up to heaven, but in their hearts they could see it as if a person was actually there and seeing something with which has body to it. When Azai saw it and he died because he wanted to see what Moshe Rabbeinu saw, which is the Spaklaria Me'ira. You see, that's the closest you can get to seeing God. Therefore, he died, and he yearned to be attached to Hashem, and he left his body. His soul left his body. But in Erech Pardes, he writes, the Pardes is like an Eden set aside for the tzaddikim. It means that by Gan Eden we also find by Yom Hashem, tzaddikim, God said to the Odom Rishon from all the trees of the garden. Therefore, the Pardes is called Pardes because it has a lot of fruit trees. There's a Pardes that you have many planted trees. That's what the Gan Eden in the future is, in a sense, and we find it that their place is in the Aravos, which we learned earlier is the seventh heaven. That there the souls of the tzaddikim are wound or bound. Marshal cites the Rizvo, and he explains that when we learn about Avarova, it's called a lesser level because the questions comes from lack of knowledge, and since they didn't comprehend the entire Talmud like the previous Tanoim did, therefore it's called lesser than the rest of Torah. But even though you're studying something which is of lesser magnitude, it gives you the ability to comprehend higher levels. So once you understand it, you're able to even comprehend the upper spheres. And the way, similar to how a simile that the Lechem Mishnah, to bread and to lechem and boso, to bread and meat. The lechem is less valued than meat, but we still find that lechem is the main source of sustenance, and you need that as the basis. And you can have the inner parts of the meal as well. So too, studying Torah gives you the ability to comprehend that which you, before you study it, cannot comprehend.